Hello, welcome to the BP Logix Feature Spotlight webinar for May 2024. I'm Dale Franks. It's a pleasure to be with you today. Let's take a look at what it is we will be discussing today. So I will share my screen and we will get started. So welcome to the webinar. We have a couple of things to discuss today. We've changed and will continue to change the UI color selection for some items, and we'll get more into that a bit later. We have removed some options from a couple of items in Process Director. We'll talk about that. There is a new CT. I say new, it actually came out in January, but we've made an update to this CT. It's the clone table from database CT. We'll take a brief look at that, and then we will talk about version 6.1.105, which will be up and ready for download very, very soon. So let's start off with the UI color selection. In Process Director, back in, well, up until very, very recently, there was only one way to choose colors in the UI, and it was a drop down that was sort of a color picker and sort of not. Let me explain what I mean. If we go into a user activity, for example, there is this color drop down here. Mine is probably a lot more extensive than yours because the way that we determine where these colors come from is by a series of vars in your custom vars file. In fact, while we're here, let me go ahead and open up my system and find it. And I'm going to pull this off the screen because it's going to require me to navigate through a couple of places. I'm sorry, I apologize. I should have brought this up earlier, and well, I just forgot. There we go. And there's the vars file. And there's probably a lot in the vars file I don't specifically want you to take a look at. So I'm going to have to do some scrolling here. And this is what we are talking about right here. All of these color values. So in my vars file, I have, well, something going on with Visual Studio Code here. In my vars file, I have all of these workflow colors, and I've got their labels and their hexadecimal colors, and the color for the text that will appear on top of them in the dropdown. So if we can move this aside just a little bit and compare and contrast. Well, let me turn off the content list. That'll probably make our life a little bit easier here. And I can pull this over a little further. And there we go. So here are my workflow colors. And if I do this, it's going to overwrite it, I guess. So can I do both at the same time? Well, I can't make this drop down. So here are my colors and their labels. This is the vars file that determines what those colors are. As you can see, I have many, many different colors that I've added, largely for contrast. Now, that's fine. I know how to do this, but it is a pain for especially cloud customers who, if they want to have this set of colors, they have to largely tell us what those colors are, and we have to build this vars file setup for them, so that they can have the colors that they want. Now, you may have a lot of colors that you want. For example, I have all of the BPL corporate colors that we use. So we have this color palette at BP Logix. I've added it in here. This is for branding and continuity purposes between forms so that we use all the same colors. So this is the way that it is still done. And this is the dropdown that used to appear everywhere for every color. It no longer does. So if we go into a activity result and we look at the activity result, we go to the options tab and we go to the button background color, we've replaced this now with a simple user picker. And so now I can just choose basically sort of any color that I want, which is, well, it's both a blessing and a curse, because we do need to have color flexibility. You need to be able to have more colors than just whatever shows up in your VARS file. And to make that happen, you have to add a bunch of colors to your VARS file, which is not super convenient. However, you also need to easily specify branding colors. The VARS file at least lets you do that. You can have those branding colors and they'll appear everywhere that a color picker appears, at least that color picker dropdown. But again, you lose the freedom of picking colors at random if that's what you want to do. So we think we have a solution, but it is going to have to be implemented in a future version of the product, which is to have a hybrid color picker, which gives me the color picker options and allows me to specify, any color that I want via a color picker, but that will also allow you to set your custom branding colors, whatever they may be, in some sort of administrative setting outside of having to do something in the VARS file. To the extent that we can get away from custom VARS, that's always a good thing. So we're thinking of adding a new installation settings page so that you can specify some colors. Now, I don't know if this is going to be an unending list where you can add as many colors as you want, or if we're just going to give you the option to specify a specific number of colors, let's say 5 or 6 or 8 or whatever it may be. And then whenever you need to pick a color in the UI, your color picker will give you both the standardized options and the general color picker to allow you to pick anything that you want. And the ultimate goal is just to replace that, whatever color pickers we're using currently, to replace them with this, what I'm calling personally a hybridized color picker to enable you to do that. And we kind of have something like that already in the product, in that if we go to the icon chooser, and it'll probably look something a little like this, and you want to pick an icon color. Well, you have the color picker, so you have the option of picking whatever color you want, but there are also these preset colors. So this is the sort of thing that we are looking at enabling you to build by just setting up whatever your default colors are that you want to set. And those will be available to you. And then end users will, if they want to, be able to choose their own colors from the color picker. So we think that's going to add a bit more flexibility to the system to enable you to go through your colors and pick them as you please, either from a default set or at random. So we've removed some options from the product. Social media custom tasks and the social media data sources are no longer functional. Couple of reasons why. Facebook and X, especially X, have changed their API, and they are completely different than they used to be. So the current social media data sources and CTs just don't work. I think with some playing around, I think one of our developers managed to get Facebook working, but X seems to be right out. X, formerly Twitter. The licensing options have also changed. And with the new licensing options, it is a little trickier for us to be able to put it into the product. We ran across something similar back in 2016 or 2017, I believe, when OData changed all, it's not OData. OData is a connection type. It's a data source type. But the people who run OData, and I believe the company is actually called CData. I believe CData, they, whatever their name is, they changed the licensing terms where we could not just offer you like the Salesforce or other OData data source connections without you having to go to CData and buying a license. Prior to that, we could put it in the product and you would be covered under our license, and you could have all of these OData data sources. That's no longer true because those licensing conditions have changed. So we can't just put out an application to give everybody access to OData data sources. Now you have to go to CData. You have to buy your own license to be able to enable those data sources. Something similar has happened with the licensing terms for social media. Not too many people use them, so that's a plus. In fact, I can only think of one customer that used them regularly, and that was a couple of years ago. So they've been removed from the product, at least temporarily. We're going to have to figure out how or if we can actually put them into a product as a general release given the new licensing terms. The APIs, well, that's just a technical issue. We could always fix up the APIs and use the new APIs. I think the long pole in this tent are the licensing terms. So that will require a little extra work on our part to see what, if anything, we can do. It may be that the only way to reactivate these would be to have you get a license and an API key from the social media provider yourself, which we would then have to use in terms of getting those activated in the product. And that would require a UI change because you'll need to be able to enter your licensing information. So for right now, they're removed from the product. Hopefully we'll get them back at some point in the not too distant future, but there are a couple of issues there that have to be addressed. The second is Flash support. You may notice in certain items, and that's the wrong item. That's not the one I wanted to show you. The one I want to show you is over here. You may notice in certain items, and in this case, I have a report. There are also some of these items in knowledge views where you have this little option right here that says use Flash Viewer. And in the good old days, when Flash existed, you could click on that and it would actually present your report, or we also did this for knowledge views. It would present them in the SWF format, the Shockwave Flash format. That no longer works because Flash no longer exists and all major browsers have dropped support for Flash. So this is a report. This is the use Flash Viewer property on the report. So in this version of Process Director, which I think is 6.1.3, I'd have to look. It doesn't matter because it's like Flash, dead as fried chicken. So in the newer version of the product, which will be out soon, as we'll discuss in a minute, that property is gone. It no longer exists. And there were some properties in knowledge views. Those have already been taken out. So I can't even show you what they were in a knowledge view. All I could do at this point is show you their absence. If we go into a knowledge view and we go to the configure tab, there was the Flash. I think there were two Flash properties here, but there was at least one. Doesn't matter. I'm not going to be seeing them no more. So they're gone as well. So Flash is gone. Therefore, we have removed Flash from the product completely. Moving on to the clone table from DB Data Source. Back in January, we built a new custom task. And what it enables you to do is take a table from one data source and just copy it whole from that data source to a different data source. So obviously you're going to need a source data source and a destination data source. If the two data sources are in the same database, it will throw an error if you try to do the conversion. When you hit the OK button on the custom task, it'll say, sorry, these two data sources look at the same database. And that is not unusual. I have all of my data sources, for example, in the internal user database. So there's really nothing I can switch from one database to another because the original table already exists in the database. But assuming you have two different data sources for two different databases, you can clone the table from one to the other. Configuration is not that hard for this. Let's hit close here. What server am I on? I'm on documentation. That's the wrong server. That's demo. I have to get to the right server to figure out where my sample is for this. And oh, I don't have a sample for it. Well, that's fine. Let's just use this. I should probably be able to do this here. Let's just create an activity. and we will make it a custom task. Oh, wait, no, I did do it. It's right there. It says CT. Hello, custom task. So here's my clone table from DB. Actually, I don't want to do it here because I don't want to use that version of the custom task. We actually just did a new one yesterday. So let me do it here on demo. So I did have it set up. Oh my goodness, that is a very, very big window. Let's make this a little smaller so that we can see it. And actually, it's going to have to be a lot smaller because I can't even. Oh, there we go. There we go. Now it's all on the screen. So I'm just going to pick a source data source. Now, if you have the original version of this, and some of you might, that we initially released, it did not have this drop down here. In fact, I think in the documentation, it doesn't even show the drop down yet because this is new. It was a text box where you just typed in the name of a table. That wasn't a great solution. So what we have done now for the newest version to update this is when you pick a data source, so we'll pick BDB, whatever that is, the drop down, well, it only shows me one table, but the drop down shows me all of the tables that I can move from my source data source to my destination data source. BP form support, that has more tables in it. So there we go. Now I have all of the tables that are in this particular data source. Again, this is the internal user data source. So there's a whole bunch of stuff in here. And I can take any of these tables like airlines and I can transfer it to a destination data source. I don't think that any of these are going to work because I believe they're all in the same database. And I'm not sure what any of these data sources are, so I'm not going to click the OK button. But if we do want to see the error show up, let me just pick the same data source, BM form support. When I hit OK here, I should see the error. I do see the error, and they both point to the same database. I'm pretty sure that most of these point to the same database, but since this is a demo server and I'm not the only person who uses it, I am hesitant to blow anybody else's stuff up. But this is how it works. This is the only configuration you need to do. You pick your source data source, your destination data source. The table name appears magically in the dropdown for your source data source. So you simply choose the table that you want to move and you click OK, and you are configured. When the custom task runs, it will clone the table from one database to another, just as you would want it to do. And with all of that in mind, that takes us to version 6.1.105. I believe that's what we're going to be calling it anyway. You may have noticed that the download for 6.1.003, or what many of you see in your UI as 6.1.3, is no longer active. We've pulled that and we will be replacing it hopefully today. I did the release notes for it yesterday, so we are very, very close to releasing 6.1.105. It's going to have two big fixes that are important. Turns out that with OAuth data sources, if you set the setting to refresh the token every time you connect, there was an issue that could cause the client secret to be erased when you refreshed the token. That was the one thing you didn't want to refresh, and it refreshed. So it only shows up if you have that refresh token setting set. But if you do, it may just kill your client secret. So that needed to be fixed. There was a display error for set forms data. It was just a display error, although it could turn into a real error depending on what you did. So you're sorting and grouping. So if let's say you have a business value, right? You want to sort and you want to do a set form data for a business value. And what we're used to seeing, let's see if I can go and grab a form and make this happen since we have plenty of time here. Let's go into okay. I didn't mean to close the form, but apparently I did. So if we go to a set form data, and we pick an event, it doesn't really matter what event we'll pick, so we'll just pick that one. And I want to set a form field via a business value. And well, this is taking a while. I tell you what, rather than me create it, I'm pretty sure that I actually have this here. That is demo. I wouldn't want to do it there anyway, would I? So let me go back to my installation and let's go into training and let's look for business values. I know they're going to be here somewhere. Business values. Okay. We'll go to that folder and that's business rules, not business values. So clearly I clicked the wrong thing, but we'll go to SQL business values. We will go to this SQL data form. We'll go to the set form data tab. And this is the error that we see where I've got this business value. I'm trying to set two different fields. And rather than grouping everything into a single group the way it used to, when it displays, it doesn't display correctly. What we were trying to see, I think I can go ahead and turn demo off here. What we were trying to see, something like this. So let me go back here to business values. And we'll go back here and we'll look at the same form. And I believe this should be the fixed version on here. So when I go to set form data, I should see that as opposed to this. So what is happening here as opposed to here, which is what we're supposed to see, is that there was an error in the binding code that specified from the database what the sorting and grouping was. It was there. It was stored properly in the database. But on display, whenever I'm grabbing that database information and trying to figure out how to show it on the page, that display code went a little bit wonky, and I ended up with this instead of with this. Now, it doesn't matter at this point looking at this because this is now still just a display problem. So I can make any other change that I want and everything is going to be fine. Nothing bad is going to happen because I haven't made any changes over to my set form data. And so my grouping and sorting is still done properly. And by the way, even at that point, if you import it, it would just be fine because here we just have a display issue. Where the problem comes in is if you start making changes to the set form data. Because once you start making changes to the set form data, it will save whatever the new order is that shows up on the display of the form. So when it rebinds whatever's on the form currently back to the database, it's going to overwrite all of your saving or all of what was previously saved. So your correct grouping and sorting would go away. So as long as you didn't make any changes, it was just a display issue. Once you started making changes, then you had problems. So we had to fix that as well. And look, the OAuth data sources probably affected one customer. It potentially could affect anyone, but it was a pretty narrow use case. Business values, not a narrow use case. So with that in mind, we went ahead and we've come up with a new version. There are a couple of other minor bug fixes in there. I say a couple of other, there's probably about sum total, probably about 42, 43 JIRA tickets that were addressed in this particular release. But the big two were the OAuth data sources and the display error for set form data. Those have been fixed along with a couple of other minor bug fixes as well. I don't know that this will be out today, but I'm thinking there is every chance that it's going to be out before the end of the week. As I said, I've already done the release notes for this. I'm literally waiting to receive a download link so that I can add it to the downloads page of the support site. The new version is 6.1.105. We will replace, I say we have, I thought we were going to have it done by today. We don't, so we will replace it with the patch download so that 6.1.03 download link is gone. A couple of you have 6.1.003 running in production. We think we know who you are. So you can expect us with the 6.1.105, you can expect us to contact you and coordinate an upgrade for that so that those two errors, which are the two primary errors in .3, we will coordinate with you to replace that with the update, which should resolve your error and should require no intervention on your part, especially if you haven't messed up your sort order in your set form datas. Then everything will just go back and look the way it's supposed to, like it does on the one that I just showed you where it has the fix applied. That's what it'll look like. And I made no changes, by the way, to get back to this state. I didn't have to do anything. Once the update was applied, it just went right back to the appropriate group because, like I said, the grouping and sorting is stored properly in the database. It was solely a display issue. So with that, I have nothing more to impart to you today. So as always, I appreciate the fact that you show up every month for these. For those of you who attend the training webinar, I will look forward to seeing you on Thursday. For everybody else, have a great month. We'll talk to you next time. So long.